to go.
Hi, Carmen.
And we're live.
Hi.
Live.
I've got to do the cooking. Don't go live yet.
Oh, we're already live, Jenny.
Just do.
And I guess this is why we start to feel like a religious sect. We know everybody in the room by now. it's a bit of a. We need to welcome with care the newcomers that start coming to the sessions to make them feel very comfortable in this little community of innovators.
Welcome, Al.
You said
hi, how you doing?
Hi.
Al.
and I see also Jimmy one. Jimmy, hello. Let's see if we can see Jimmy's face.
Long time no see, Jimmy.
And admitting Jeff.
Can we put the decompression zones slide?
Yes.
Thank you.
We are still decompressing. Well, I used to say decompositing. Oh my God, these words. Am I awake, Pedro? Please help me. Am I awake?
Yes, that's so. We're now just, if you need some coffee or something, some cookies, bring them on. We'll start in less than 2 minutes. I
Can
have my
exchange recipes for like birthday parties and birthday cakes.
Yes, I think next time we can also organize a session where we all bring some food we cooked, some cakes or something. We'll make it the culinary session, and we can all kind of share some recipe from our own countries, and we'll make the culinary book of the Wednesday Web Jam. So that's an idea for a future session, and so let's see if we can get that one rolling in one of those perhaps summer editions when everyone's already working harder or on the beach, and so we can have one of those mat sessions.
Yeah, we can have thematic. We can have food. We can have cocktails.
That would be a night, an evening session. It's evening for some of our friends here, actually.
So I think that the Portuguese part is responsible for catering for our first anniversary.
Yes. Hi, Vika. Hi,
All the
Louise.
scenes and lives are Portuguese responsibilities. Me and Pedro will engage about food, about drinks, about whatever. Okay.
Yes, please. Good thinking.
We look forward to it.
Can you send them in little parcels before the day?
Yeah, of course.
That's the ideal model.
Good.
We need to figure that out.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Which is a very tricky way of getting contact dates, by the way.
We might be able to do something, actually, if we find some really easy, I can think of a couple of them, easy recipes. We can actually send them when people subscribe for it, and so we might actually do it that way. I think, yeah, I have some ideas. Let's do something like that. But it's already top of the hour.
It's top of the hour.
A nice group. I'll hand it over to Union to welcome all of these lovely people.
Yes, welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Be aware that you are recorded and you are shining on YouTube. If you want to shine in another way, you can put off your camera or your mic, and otherwise just shine with us along the way. So welcome. If you are here for the first time, then I'll explain to you where you arrived. You have arrived at an online learning lab where we fill forward, and I just did with the slides. So this is a place where innovators, facilitators, and experimentalists come together, and we love to do experiments. Sometimes that can cause us to stumble and stutter or even fail, but we call that failing forward. There is no other way, and you are so welcome to join us and make this your home. So today, again, we try a new format, and it's called The Radio Show. May I introduce to you our fresh, nice, good-looking radio show host, Pedro.
Oh my goodness, when you said good looking, you just killed me. So welcome to the Wednesday Web Jam Radio Show. It's a new format. It's a crazy experiment. Let's see how the show goes. And the intention, as always, is to learn. Because we are a learning platform, and that's what we like to do. We all get together to learn something from each other. And today, we're inviting Katharina Berger. She's a great friend of mine. We've met over 10 years ago, I think, in a session in perhaps Berlin or Frankfurt. And we became good friends after that. And I really like her work. And we've been talking quite a lot about innovation in these past years. And I think that Katharina can bring us some really interesting topics for our discussion. And as promised, I and my dear colleagues, we brought to this session one of our first innovations. It's called the fake microphone, and it does work. And so it's absolutely fine. And if I talk to the microphone, my voice changes. And so as you can see, I'll try to use my radio voice when we have special questions, the questions that deserve a radio voice to be asked. And so let's actually hand over to Katharina. And she was for a long time the responsible for design thinking at Deutsche Bank. She is now a university professor. She runs her own consultancy, and she has a lot of experience about bringing not just innovation, but also new ways of learning to companies. And it's a theme that has passionate her for the past years. And I'm really eager to hear her initial words about it. The way the session will run is that we'll hear a first introduction from Katharina, and then we'll have a conversation among some of us with Katharina. And then to spice up things, we'll send you to breakout rooms when you can discuss the topics that we were discussing with Katharina, and then we all come back to round up the session with some of our key learnings. And so to talk about all of these new learning skills and new concepts around learning, I do welcome Katharina. Hello, how are you doing?
Hi, Pedro. Thank you very much for having me in this session. It's really a great format. And I'm very interested in how the discussion will go. I brought a topic that is already giving me thinking for quite a time. As you know, I'm doing a lot on design thinking. I will share my presentation with you. The topic that I am thinking about is, how can design thinking help us transforming our skills to the next smart? Yes, because I think that this is an important thing. By the way, I'm working now with the Swiss University Kaleidos, University of Applied Science in Zurich. And indeed, as Pedro mentioned, I have been working for Deutsche Bank until September 2019, and it was a great time to evangelize people to do more for innovation and for client centricity. What drives me is, if we look at the tools, and I know that all of you have some experience with design thinking, so I don't need to explain it to you, yes? If I look at our tools, whether it is prototyping, personas, customer journeys, or value proposition, which is all on the customer side, or just digging deeper into the problem to understand it and to understand the available solution space, I think this is quite common for people who are working in the design thinking environment. But what we see here as well is we are strongly working in an iterative way. Why do we do this? Because we try to learn. Yes, what does it help us if we apply the design thinking toolbox to our daily work? what we can see is that design thinking is fostering and strengthening empathy, critical thinking and problem solving, communication and active listening, experimentation, exploration, and entrepreneurial thinking. I assume that this is not really new to you. Yes, but the question is, do we need this to face the future? If we look at the future, we have real big trends ahead of us. We're not talking just about changes. You all know about the climatic change, about trends like autonomous driving or circular economy. And I think the last one that hit us hard and showed us that the world can change really from 1 second to the other is our very nice pandemic Corona. Yes. So we see that from one moment to the other, we might not understand the world anymore. Unfortunately, we have a lot of this ahead, and there are some others as well. Yes, we are stepping into the smart machine age. Yeah, we can see robotics. Who has seen the videos from Boston Robotics can be only stunned by what they are currently already doing. And we can see that artificial intelligence is speeding up their skills. So we can just wait for these two to really change our working level. So now how does this connect design thinking and stepping into the smart machine age? I think one of the things that we have to consider, what was smart in the past will not be smart before. In the past, it was the more you know, the better you were. The more you had information, the better jobs you could get. Yes, the new smart will be different because we cannot outrun an artificial intelligence in recalling patterns or pattern matching or find differences between data. If you consider, for example, how many diagnoses can a doctor read and compare in his mind, and how many can an artificial intelligence? Or think of a tax advisor, yes? And they still think their world is fine because they have jobs that are that need a lot of knowledge and skills. But these techniques will change their world too. And the same applies for robotic. If we look for the new smart, we need to consider what can humans do better than smart machines. If it is not the quantity of knowledge, what is it that we have? Yes. So what we can see is what we considered smart before the smart machine age will be the new stupid. We go one step further, but now what is being smart? Yes. One of the things is indeed to excel at a highest level of thinking, learning, emotionally engaging with others that one is capable of doing. And here comes the connection to this design thinking. This is exactly what we practice there. And if we look at our attitude to our work, we can say again, design thinking is changing our mindset. It means more listening. It means more understanding. And this is, again, something that we need for the new smart. So we have a big chance with design thinking to change it. What is important are mental models. Mental models are not necessarily reality. They are just how we think the world works. And each of us has these kind of mental models. Let's make an example. Tonight, I will have to go to the fitness center. My mental model of fitness centers is you go there to build strong bodies, you know, firm muscles, all this kind of stuff. So indeed, yes, exactly. Indeed, it was not the place to be for me. Yes, you should consider I'm not the youngest anymore, and I'm not really strong. Yeah, but the mental model is wrong because nowadays a lot of fitness centers are caring for keeping people flexible, keeping back pain away. So they are already a part of the health system. But my mental model still says, ooh, this is a fitness center. Yes.
You just changed my life.
Yeah, this is a tricky thing. Yes. And therefore, you need to look at that. Yes. And we have these mental models. People who eat meat are bad people because, yes, people who do not, yes. And so everybody has these kind of mental models, but we need to understand them and we need to modify them. And this is exactly what we need for new principles to become the new smart. First of all, it is important that I'm not defined by what I know. I am defined by the quality, how I can then combine the informations I get from listening, thinking, relating things and information to each other, and collaboration. All this is part of design thinking. So applying this way of work will help us also to become new smart. The mental models, as I said, are not reality. It is just how we think it is. Yes. When I look at ideas, quite often we protect ideas, but it's not the case that I am the idea. Yes, I need to decouple this. So I can discuss my idea, and this is not impacting me as a person. So it is to change what I believe is right and not my values. What we also have to consider, we should be open-minded. Again, I think we know this from design thinking. We should be open to understand that we live in a world of hypotheses that needs to be tested. So I can modify due to better data, better information and learnings. And last but not least, and I think you had this, and this is why this fits so perfectly into this environment. My mistakes and failures are opportunities to learn. And I think this is exactly how this session is meant to be. We want to learn, even if we might have failed with an idea or an hypothesis. And this is indeed what we need to consider. And design thinking with this attitude and with this approach will help us getting exactly to this point.
And that's it, Katharina. Thank you so much for this introduction to our conversation. And I have a bunch of questions. So, and I'll also get the rest of the team to bring in their own questions. But I'll start with one that is a bit scary for me.
Yes.
Which is, if we think about, let's say, a shoemaker.
Yes.
We had so many shoemakers in town 100 years ago. But now factories replace them because
Yes.
products are now just going to factories. But knowledge is the next barrier, and so these machines are now software is coming after our knowledge, which we thought would be the safe space. And so the old smart becomes the new stupid, as you were saying. And so if the old smart becomes the new stupid, my first question would be for the microphone, actually. What is the skill set that we'll need in the future? And that's it's worrisome, which is kind of like, so what do I do? Oh my goodness, if computers take over me.
Well, I think one of the things that we should consider is, first of all, we need to be aware of our mental models and that they exist. Mm-hmm. And we need to be aware that we need to change them on a regular basis whenever new information come in that show us things have changed. Yeah. This is, by the way, something you might know that when in UK, the trains changed from coals to burn coals to electricity. Yeah. They had to take for at least another year the guy who was shipping the coals into the fire. They had to keep it on the train, and to pay for it, even if there was no work at all for him to do.
Yeah.
Yes, this is something, for example, that is related to mental models. Yes, he must have a safe job, so he needs to stay in the job, even if there is no work anymore. Yeah. Another.
Sorry, go
Okay.
ahead. Yeah.
What else? What we should learn is to be aware that we have to experiment and to learn from it. Yeah.
But Katharina, sorry.
Yeah.
I have another one. It's in your experience, for example, what has been the most stupid thing that you found around you and your environment and people you've met? Or
well, there are a lot of things, but I would like to tell you one out of my personal experience. Yes. Sitting in meetings, and you might see comparisons in your own life. Sitting in meetings and listening to the speaker, and possibly it's happening exactly now, makes you think about what do you know about that? And what can you say about that topic? And so you start internally a little list of, I have to say this, and I have to bring into the discussion that. Yeah. But what we do not do is, what is the next question that I should ask that person? There is a quote that made me aware of this, because indeed that happened to me. Yeah. The quote was, the problem with our communication is that we listen to answer. We do not listen to understand. And when I heard this, my mental model broke. Yes. Because I thought you need to make sure you have your speaking slot. And you need to add information. And the better choice would be to ask questions. Good questions. Yes. That would be my task.
All right.
From our audience, you are welcome to open your mic and ask a question.
And meanwhile, let me one of my own. Oh, we have someone from the audience already.
I've got a question. It's not a very clever one, but I think I might have just misunderstood. Can you hear me? Because I know I've got a really...
Yes, we can.
Yes.
yes.
Did I just hear you say that the coal men in the industrial era had to pay for their own coal?
No.
No.
What I said was, when the trains changed to electricity, yes, the guy who was shoveling the coals into the fire, yes, on the train, had still been employed, even if there was no work at all for him to be done, and he had to stay on the train, yes, and he had to get his salary.
And it's actually very, even nowadays with artificial intelligence, this very same example still applies. I know of a project where a bank wanted to have a lot of documents being classified automatically by a system, by artificial intelligence, and the software just tagging these documents with the topics that were inside the document. So the software had to read the documents and tag the topics that it would be approaching. However, users would not trust in the early stage the quality of this automatic tagging from the software. And so there had to be still some people in the job reading the documents, tagging them manually, and double checking if the computer was doing a good enough job. And then when they compared, in the beginning was not so good, and then just improved. And after 6 months, the software was actually doing much better than the human intervention. And so they realized, okay, it's pointless to keep up the process of parallel classification and tagging of documents. And we see this speed of change speeding up so much. Just another quick example.
No, Pedro.
Okay, I'll hand over to
example. Forget it. Hugo, please, take the mic.
And shut me up. Let's hear the question from the audience right now.
We got Hugo.
Yeah,
right?
For Katharina and everyone. Pedro was talking a few minutes ago that EI, artificial intelligence, will come for our knowledge. I'm not worried about that. I'm a bit worried if the AI will come after our sense making, adaptability, and intuition. So,
yes.
Thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I personally think it will come for that, but fortunately not exactly now. Yes, but I read an article where they said artificial intelligence, they programmed an artificial intelligence to manipulate people, and it could do that.
Yeah, when I speak about sense making, is about, okay, how can I see diverse contexts and information and try to relate them into some kind of, not a mental model, but a kind of abstract perspective of how things work. And I think that is one of our main exclusive topics as humans. So it's not about knowledge, it's about, I don't know, integration, holistic thinking, or holistic feeling. So
well,
we are safe for now.
We are safe if we are capable of doing that job. Because if I look at people, let's assume, for example, bankers. Yes, I'm coming from the bank business. Yes, bankers still believe they are necessary. And Bill Gates already said, banking is necessary, banks are not. And they still cannot imagine that this is true. Another example, you might be aware that the first digital camera has been developed by Kodak. You know that?
Yeah.
Yes. And still they didn't brought it to the market. And I had the opportunity to talk to the developer of this camera. And I said, just a question, why didn't you bring it out? And he said, I think, and this is just an assumption, I think my manager could not imagine a world without a paper printed photo and without this little roll in their camera. They just couldn't imagine. And we have a lot of these mental models, yes, that stop us from taking better decisions. Yes.
Thank you.
I still hear people who say autonomic driving, oh, that is so long away. Yes. I have been sitting a year ago in a Tesla. Yeah. And I have to admit, it drove quite good. Yes. It kept the lane. It braced the brakes when necessary. It started to drive again, even at a traffic light. Yes. It was already doing quite well. We just cannot imagine this future is already here.
And Katharina, how can we break the mental models we have? Because this is a difficult question. It's hard to practice because you love your past experiences. You organize the world neatly in your head. Things feel comfortable inside your head.
Mental models are very helpful for humans because they speed up their decision-making process. Yes. So indeed, it was good that we have them. But now the world changes so fast. What we need, first of all, we need to step back from believing we know how the world turns around. And we need to change into, we have an assumption how the world turns around. Yes. And again and again, we need to test these assumptions. Yes.
Absolutely.
And therefore, I think we need to practice that. And we need to be aware, we really need to be aware that what we think how the world works is something that we have created from experience. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So, to Mark?
Mark, and then to Sylvain for a quick question. Mark, you ready? Mark, you're being called to the radio station.
Can you hear me?
We're calling you.
Yes.
We can. You're on air.
So yeah, I just was wondering, Katharina, I love the concept of humility and self-awareness, which I think many of us here, at least, we embrace conceptually. It's a lot harder to do than it is to say. And I'm wondering what your experience is in the corporate world, and in particular with at the executive level of this concept of humility, because my experience, at least historically, has been that executives don't exude humility. So I'm wondering what your experience is.
Well, first of all, you need to consider they are successful because they are as they are. Yes, so they are coming from a world where having more information was the best way to step a level higher. Yeah, and they have been good at that. Yeah, now we have this whole digital transformation. Yeah, and what I see and what I hear also from people in those large companies are expressions like agility theater, scrum theater, yeah, and you can see that they try to embrace it, but it's hard for them to do it. Indeed, I personally think it is something that will, well, only a limited number of people will succeed being in the top range, yes, and having not had this attitude of leadership from the beginning. Yeah, and therefore I saw a lot of examples where people say we want to be agile, we want to be client-centric, and still the work is done in the same way than before. Okay. Yeah, but you can change that, and you can also give them a chance to experience the difference. And again, it is about experiencing the difference, not about telling them how to do things better. Because if you have these people in a workshop or in a project, and you bring them to the point to say, let us talk with some users. And the only thing that you have to do is listen carefully what they say and try to understand what they say. Yes, don't start a discussion. Yeah. Then they come back and say, wow, that was interesting.
I promised to just slot in a little story before handing over to Sylvain. A few years ago in Germany, there was a project from IDEO, yeah, and working for a large utility. And in one of the company's corridors, they built kind of an installation, an art installation almost in the corridor, with a bunch of obstacles that you had to physically overcome. And the obstacles were exhibits just blown up of the problems faced by clients having to deal with the invoice and dealing with the monthly invoices and trying to solve the problems at the call center or at their shops. And so this installation, this art installation with all these problems and the sentences that were being said by clients and the answers given by the employees, this was so shocking for the management that they really saw and felt the reality in a different format. But handing over to Sylvain for his question. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Pedro. Katharina, isn't it so when I hear you giving your expose that design thinking, future science, and complexity management come together here? And even with the layer of coaching or of theory U on top of that, because that's what's helping to change your mental models, because they need to be changed in this context. And also futures literacy is talking a lot about anticipatory assumptions about the future, and all these things are changing now because it's not plannable anymore and everything is changing too fast, and plus the pandemic, etc., etc. So we have to develop that skill to embrace the future and to make sense of the future and to design the present from the view of the future, to be prepared for it, and also to like complexity and not to hate it, and all those things. So what is happening here is these different type of frameworks are just merging and need to merge to tackle everything that we have to do in the near future.
Yes, I think so. I think you're completely right. We have to change this, and we need to practice doing experiments and find learnings in it. So we need to have sessions after an experiment where we say, okay, what was our hypothesis? What went different? And what can we learn out of this? And this is not happening most of the time. Yeah, we are still just looking for, okay, this does not work. And we are lucky if we can say, let's do another experiment, but we do not really care about why didn't it work? Do we understand what was different from our assumptions? Yes. Did the customer react differently? Is the material wrong that we have used whatsoever?
Yeah, exactly. And that's also how I see and how I feel it. Well, thank you for your.
Thank you very much. With this note, I'm going to send you to breakout rooms but just for conversation. And my challenge for your conversation will be think about your personal experience, your knowledge, and why do you think it will not be outdated in 10 or 15 years' time? What assumptions do you have in your head right now to make you think that? And how would you, together as a group, could you imagine something to overcome mental models in your teams and to prepare them for this future where we need to learn in a different way? So how can we first break our mental models? And also, what do we need to learn? What kind of skill sets do we need in the future to kind of like prepare ourselves for this humility that we need to face? And if even doctors will face trouble when software will replace 80 or 90% of their diagnostic work.
Yes, Pedro. Yes.
Yeah.
I am ready.
To breakout rooms.
To send our audience into breakout room. I send you with heart. There you go.
And people, go. You know, don't wait for us. Just go.
Like an emergency.
No. Let me find another one. Ooh.
And let me see, because I do remember telling Katharina that she should not go to the breakout room.
She might come back. Don't you worry. She might come back.
And so let's see if we can have her back quickly.
I am going to look for her. Yeah, she is in a room with Elle and Natchket.
Okay, so let's see if we can bring them back. I'll just join them and say, get out of there.
Yeah, no. I can move her to the main session. Shall I do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me see. There she comes.
Okay, and now let me ask these lovely people here, who we know, almost all of them actually, to show their faces. Arne, what are you doing hiding yourself, man? Arne, you're being called to the main session.
Yeah, I was walking outside. I'm on my phone, and I just came in. So I was walking my dog in the rain. Hey, I'm here.
Hello.
So I like your radio show, Mr. Gennaro. And so, what is the feeling so far with this format and the topic? Because I think the topic is awesome. Does it fit in the format? Have you learned something?
What I'm learning about the format itself. Really hard to synchronize with the colleagues. So if we're trying to do a radio show where we have a panel of 3 or 4 of us, trying to interact and manage it together to bring the different voices and the different opinions, how do we synchronize ourselves? Because we don't have those little cues that you see in a radio station where people look at each other and kind of like signal themselves. And
that's just a mental model you are talking about.
Exactly. So how is that?
Mental model. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's sort of that's what I was interested in seeing, because our mental model of a radio show does give you sort of a blueprint of what it should be. Right, and exactly what you're saying. I think it's interesting how that changes. And I don't want to start with about something like Clubhouse, because I know you're not into that that cool kids space yet, because you're like, you don't do the iPhone thingy, so you don't belong to the cool kids. But your radio show is actually a perfect format, except for the visuals, for Clubhouse, where it's almost anti-internet. So because it's talk radio, and I was really struck by this. It's radio, it's stock radio, but somehow it's new. So it's sort of a mashup between something we know, like, oh, it's radio, it's just people talking. It's not recorded. Yeah. It's just talk. It's kind of really weird. It's not recorded. We don't leave a trace. Like, whoa, that's really weird. So everything I say, all this smart, it's all lost. But at the same time, it is so traditional.
Because she's asking to be brought back.
Get her back.
Okay.
So my question here is sort of our mental model. Is that something that we are also longing for all the time? Like, because I was like, oh, this is like radio. Yay, I miss that.
Hey, welcome back, Katharina.
You're on mute, dear. You need to unmute yourself. Yes, there you are. You're still on mute.
Here we are. Hi, Arne.
Hi, Katharina. Sorry, I was walking the dog while listening to you.
Oh, what kind of a dog you have?
Yeah, it's a Labradoodle.
A Labradoodle. Okay.
It's a mix between a actually it's a mix between a Labradoodle. I don't know the English word for those dogs. Like, it's a poodle. We call it a King's poodle.
I know
Koningspoodle.
Labradoodle.
Yeah, but it's a King's poodle and a
This is mine.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
Yes. So where have you been in the discussion here?
Well, we were talking about sort of the mental model in the sense that of your, because I'm really interested in these mental models, because that's where real change, sustainable change happens, right? Yeah. And it's it's awesome. So, but reaching into sort of that kind of sort of that layer of where you touch mental models and are not just putting out fires, as you're just kind of looking at the events and you're trying to fix it all the time, but how do you get to that mental model? Because it's also the space, and that's where I try to kind of get to with Pedro just a moment ago, where we feel so comfortable. So your story of the train with the call, even now, that's such a romantic, nice image.
Yes.
Right? There is something so comfortable with stable with those things we know, even if we even haven't experienced them ourselves. So how do you get there?
I think what we need to foster and encourage is this not fun, this joy of experimenting. Yes. And learning something new, trying something. It is not so new. It was related to some people. Yes. Edison, for example, had this joy of, I need to find another way. Yes. There will be another way. Yeah. He had the chance to change mental models. Yes. Benz did the same. Yeah. With changing, how do you call it? This horse carriage. Yes. Into a car. Yes. And combining things. Yeah. But I think indeed, what we are doing with design thinking is exactly that, if we apply it properly, because we define experiments and we want to learn from them. We explore solution spaces, we explore problems, we explore customer needs, yes? And with that, we are starting to say, this is my mental model, this is how I think, for example, generation Z is. And then talking to them and reading studies and doing research and observing, we figure out they are not the same. So I start changing my mental model. I think it's exactly what we do with design thinking.
Let me ask one thing from Union. Union, can you create a quick poll, because it's on your side as host, about what would be the ideal size for these breakout rooms, for this discussion that they just had? Because we have the mental model, or at least I have, that 5 people will be good, or 6. Perhaps 3 is better. There's some rooms with 3 and some rooms with 6. And let's find out if we should actually move people to bigger rooms, or what should we do? Just a quick question so that we can continue then the conversation on mental models once they come back.
You're asking me to make a poll?
Yeah. Or can you
or
build
broadcast it? Yeah, but and then using the poll after they come back?
Yeah. It's just ideal size for the breakout room for you, and you just put
Okay.
3
Let's see
or 4,
whether I can make it. Yeah.
3 people, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
And then we see, we'll try to see why would we think so. And I was thinking also that Arne has been working a bit on deconstructing mental models to help research and create and generating ideas, because you tend to build upon your mental models or look at problems from your previous mental models, and you kind of ignore the things that don't fit your mental model. So you disregard them as less important.
Yes.
And so that really slows down or perils your understanding of a problem.
I personally think we need to be more aware of mental models. So I would love to have, if I would have a team around me, I would love to have a discussion on where do you think we have mental models that are not current anymore? Where do you observe mental models to exist? That we start first to be more aware that there are mental models. And then we need to figure out how can we update them. So what is it that we have to observe? Possibly we should talk about observations regarding these mental models.
Yeah.
For example, I can tell you, yes, I'm in this study for variables, yes, and I would have sworn, yes, here in Germany nobody pays for that. I haven't seen them. So that was a mental model I had. Now I'm in this survey, yeah, and I meet funny people, yes. One guy said, I told my bakery that if they don't accept contactless payments, I will look for another one.
Okay.
he wrote them an email. Yes. Yeah. So my mental model was wrong, but with the observation and with having a focus for a time on that topic, I figured out, oh, my mental model does not work. It's wrong.
Yeah.
I need to update it.
Mm-hmm.
It's outdated. Yes. And we need to practice these things. And if I have a team, I think it's a good thing once in a while to look at, to watch out or to name one situation where we say, we believe we know how it is. And now for the next, I don't know, yes, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we observe whether we can see that and what else we see. But this is exactly what we do with design thinking.
Yeah.
It's exactly what we do with design thinking. We define a problem, yes. We think about who is involved and we start talking to them and observing them. And that changes our view on how things are.
Mm-hmm. Quite true. And on the other hand, there's an interesting angle on creativity, which says if you build up a larger number of mental models on how to solve problems, then you tend to pick up actually on your mental models to generate ideas. Your ideas are actually much more predictable than you would desire to assume. But we tend to follow some of our usual paths in the brain to come up to some types of solutions, and that's how our brain tries to solve different types of problems.
But again, we have tools for that. Have you ever used disruptive brainstorming?
Not sure I have, at least not under that name. Can you explain it?
One of the nice exercises is, imagine you're sitting in a plane. Yes, you're the pilot. Yes, and you're arriving at the airport, so you should land. the only thing that you cannot use are your brakes because there are none.
Okay.
How do you get the bird down without damage?
Yes, without damage.
So how should this look like? So how can you land an airplane without brakes?
Yeah, well, I can think of a few options. Actually, if it's a small airplane, there's a world record.
Imagine it is a starfighter.
Yeah. Ooh, that would be harder.
I am going to get the people
little
back.
Airplanes landing in like 10 meters.
Yes.
Because they kind of like last minute, they slow down and they almost get their nose up. There's a bit of wind, breaks them down, and then
somebody needed to think about that, right?
Yes, absolutely. So they can actually break in 10 minutes. Quite
and that's disruptive brainstorming. Take something away that they believe they really need.
Yeah. So that's true. In that case, what is needed is you need to make the airplane as light as possible, and then give it some really. You need to extend the flaps much more. And if you make an airplane,
no flaps.
It really lands very, very well. Very good.
Welcome back, everybody.
We have come back, or almost all of them. And as usual, we do lose a few who fear the breakout rooms. One day, before we send you to breakout rooms, we need to put the poll question: why fear the breakout rooms? It's the moment when we need to perhaps produce also information and not just consume it. And that's my assumption. That's my mental model. But we're going to launch a polling now, a small poll. And I'm going to ask Union, is it me or you launching? I can launch that. I'm just going
really?
to ask you. How many people should we have in these breakout rooms? We tend to assume a given number, but we might be very wrong. And so let's see how this goes. We have already a nice number of votes. Waiting for a few more of you to vote. And just giving you some more time for voting. We have about 80% of votes already. And so we do not like abstention. I'm trying to bring you all into the conversation here. Okay, poll closed. So sharing some results, and much to my personal surprise, 3 people, maximum 4 would be advisable. And I'm the one responsible for saying, we should get 5 or 6 of them. The more the merrier. They all get excited together. Apparently not. So that's it for my mental model. There you go. I thought
yes.
It should be a bigger number.
It depends on the time we have, Pedro.
Exactly.
Perhaps. So was this time appropriate also? Because we try to give find an appropriate time. It's very frequent in our sessions that people say, "Oh, we don't know really." When it was getting good, it stopped. And so, how do we figure out what's the ideal time? 15 minutes. I see a post-it note there. We should have
never enough.
It's never enough. It can't never ever be enough. I think it also depends on the topic and on the task that you have to accomplish. So these questions are, you can't answer these questions just by 3 person and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that, I think.
And you just did, Sylvain. And you just did. You answered the question. So what is here going on? There is a mental model about the question and answering. And when answering, you say, I should have answered. That's interesting. What model was here working? What model was here working?
Are you asking that question to me?
Do you dare to answer?
Well, the model that was working is that there are more criteria that define the optimal experience here. That was, in fact, my idea behind. And we know that in these sessions, as they all last like 1 hour or 1.5 hours, you can't have breakout rooms that last 1 hour, because otherwise it takes all the time. So it's always only like a test of the exercise, like you would do it in a learning workshop. You do it just to show it, to illustrate it, but you don't do it in real, and that also makes you sometimes feel stressed because you want to do everything right in a complicated exercise, everything right, and then you're stressed to do it within 10 minutes and come up with something intelligent, during these 10 minutes.
Since you are describing my mood, I do want to pose a question for Katharina. Where does, in your model, friendship come along? Where in your model does friendship come along?
To whom is this question?
Katharina.
To me. Well, friendship is indeed, it is indeed a big thing. Yes. We did once crowdsourcing for ideas. Yes. So we asked all people to bring in their ideas, to capture their ideas, and we asked them to convince others to support the idea. So now the people send around emails like, "Hey, I have posted an idea. Can you please like it?" Yes. And the assumption when we did this crowdsourcing for ideas, yes, was that we will see how many people will support the idea. But what we saw is how many people like their partners, their colleagues. Because what we saw is you get a link, yes, you say, "Hey, yeah, Peter has sent me an idea and he asks me to like it." Yes, quite often you don't even read it, you right away like it. Yes, this was not the mental model we had.
Thank you.
I want to launch a challenge to the audience, which is think about a situation, recent one, let's say last month or last 3 months, when you did some research or faced a situation where people thought that they were right, and then they found out later that they were totally wrong in their views or in their opinions. It might be a personal situation of your personal life, or it might be a professional situation where suddenly you managed to show your boss how wrong they were, or you found out that you were very wrong. What would be situations that you can imagine, okay, when was my mental model wrong, or my team's mental model wrong, or my boss' mental model is wrong, and we found it, and it was easy or difficult to actually bring the new view, the new insight to be accepted. And now they're all thinking, and wow.
Pedro, for me, this happened when I became a parent, definitely. Yeah. And it took me a while to realize that I was trying to discipline, to be supportive, to do all the things that I thought a parent should do based on my experience of how my parents did to me. And there was a moment where my daughter made it very clear that the way you just were now was unacceptable, and I had to agree with her. And I like very consciously shifted my approach and whole mental model around parenting, and began to dig in and cover and the sort of assumed ways of parenting, and just that awareness of it was the start of a different direction.
Yeah, I had that moment too with one of my kids. Quite painful for me and for him. It was painful for him for a long time, and then suddenly it became painful for me when I realized I was trying the wrong way to be a father. So that was also quite impactful in our relationship. It became much softer and easier after that. And other examples that you would, because this one for me, I don't want to talk too much about it because it's so personal, and I don't want to cry in the first radio show. And so if you can save me and share some other moments when your mental models were proven.
You're a professional. If you don't want to cry, I'll cry for you.
Oh, thank you, Jenny.
I've got nothing to lose.
Oh.
Cry for dramatic effect.
I might have a nice business example. During my last month in our company, I was assigned to support an architecture team. Yes, software architecture. And I was sitting in a meeting and one of the guys said, well, you know, we have now included this startup software in our online banking, but we were not capable of connecting it to our login procedure. So that means that our customers, when they want to use that part in online banking, have to reauthorize themselves, re-log in. Yes, but it's not a big deal because we can explain that. And I raised my hand and I said, okay, you know, I'm funny. Can I ask you for a moment to follow my thoughts? Can you please close your eyes? And now imagine Facebook, Apple, Google, would bring in a new function and they would bring a short information. Yes, we're very sorry, it's a great function, but you need to re-log in here. What would you think this is? And they were very clear that this would be shit. Yes. But they could not imagine that it could be shit for our customers too. That was a great example for mental models. We can explain it to our customers that this is a little bit inconvenient, but has its reasons.
I guess a lot of the work I do as facilitator is to try to bring different stakeholders to common views and try to, or common ground at least, or common understanding of the situation. And it's usually about bringing research data, and it certainly helped in recent projects, trying to make sure that the research data was accepted by everyone. And once they accepted it, it's kind of like, right, okay. So now we have a common ground to build from, which is my little trick, Ezekiel.
But what about when we're actually building into the future? So I'm thinking back in the 90s or even before that, where the internet was this thing, and if you just put it out there, people will communicate and hold hands, and the world was going to be wonderful. And then it's like everything is tools and weapons. So there's that duality, right? But when we're designing into the future and there's no data really to draw from, like what's the path forward? That's always like
I like to use trends because they're my windows to the future, but I'd like to hear also from someone else what they do. My little trick is with trends. I try to understand.
I am your friend, Pedro, because it's nearly time. It's nearly time. So friends, do stay with us. Do stay with us for the backstage. But before we go into the backstage, can I ask Mark to introduce our speaker for next week? Mark.
Sure. Yunyan, I don't know if you have this slide or if somebody can bring up the slide, but it doesn't matter. We're going to have next week, we're going to have Ilonka Kunrad, who is one of our friends here from Wednesday Web Jam, the Wednesday Web Jam Village, who will be bringing a set of journey mapping cards that they've been using in the healthcare sector to map, to have discussions with people about, in particular, identifying what steps to use when they define journey maps. So it's a really interesting, practical conversation about a tool that's been developed. And the idea is we'll look at it initially from the perspective of how it was designed, and then talk about ways that it can be used for that. The concept of using cards could be applied to other kinds of contexts than just patient journey mapping. So that's next week. Look forward to seeing you.
Mark. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Let me just take 30 seconds to say thank you so much to our dear guest, Katharina. And we are shutting down now the live session on YouTube. But as you know, we'll stay for the backstage. And so now it's a free format, and welcome to the backstage.